Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kyle, Got Camera. And if you're new here, then consider subscribing. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. We talk about lifestyle optimization, biohacking, recovery, all that fun stuff. So we just did another video with my man Cliff over there, which I will link up right here, which you should definitely go check out. It's all about energy, how to improve your energy. And now I'm with his wife, Marta. Marta has been somewhat of a sage for me as well, as they work together in tandem, and I worked with them for a couple years. And in this video, I want to talk to you about the subconscious mind and how emotions and the stuff that's happening below the surface is actually the stuff that's running the show and probably keeping you stuck where you are if you are stuck, or have gotten you to where you want to be if you're in a good place. So Marta, can you first give us a little bit of a lowdown on the subconscious to the best of your understanding, and how do you approach it with clients, and how do you start thinking about that kind of stuff?
I love how you did this just a second ago. A lot of people, and I catch myself doing that as well, do this when they talk about the mind. Conscious, subconscious, it doesn't matter. I believe, although it's not scientifically confirmed, maybe it is somewhere, but in my opinion, in my eyes, from working with countless mentors, exploring myself through different modalities in different ways, I don't necessarily think this is our mind, this is our brain that is a receiver of what our mind gives us as a piece of information, as a data input. And that's only like a radio. Think of a radio that you can tune in and dial in, turning the dial. That's what the brain does, but that's not the mind itself. One of our mentors even talks about it. I'm going completely out there right off the bat here. One of our mentors even talks about the mind existing in the blood, right? Some people talk about the mind as part of the wider consciousness, that we literally have a little antenna on top of our head and we pick up the thoughts based on our state, right? So our situation, how we feel, how we go about things comes from whatever we pick up from what's floating out there. But going back to conscious versus subconscious, I work a lot with hypnosis. I work a lot with basically helping people understand that how they show up in the day-to-day life, whether it comes to their physical health, emotional health, mental health, or everything combined together, it's not necessarily who they are, who they think they are, because it will be an expression of their stories, right? And when you did this, a lot of people would be familiar, and a lot of you guys will be familiar with the tip of the iceberg that you probably would have seen in countless memes on Facebook or Instagram, being the conscious mind, right? The 5 to 10% of our day-to-day operational time, if you like. So how we go about things, how we speak to people, how we speak to ourselves, how we behave, what the thoughts are that we're thinking, that's 5 to 10% only the stuff on the surface where we think we're conscious. We actually very often operate from what's underwater, right? Below the surface, which is 90 to 95%, what we call our subconscious mind. And a lot of people fight and resist the subconscious mind. A lot of people want to eradicate their subconscious belief. A lot of people want to kill them, get rid of them, obliterate them, whatever it might be. But I always go about it in a way that, think about having to focus on fighting something, coming out of that war mindset. And Eckhart Tolle talks about it. I think it's in The New Earth. He also wrote The Power of Now. I think it's The New Earth, his other book, that he talks about the war mindset, right? When we focus on fighting something, we have to have a reason to fight. So if there is a thought, a perception, a behavior, a pattern that we're repeating in our life that we know is not serving us, if we keep fighting it, it needs to stay there. It cannot disappear and it cannot go away. Because if it does, the purpose of our identity as a fighter disappears and our identity dies. And that's probably one of the scariest things for us as humans, to actually strip ourselves off of our identity. We can go down the spiritual route of talking about ego, identities and all of that, but going back to the subconscious mind, the way I like to approach it is helping my clients become friendly with their subconscious mind and understand that it doesn't matter what goes on. It doesn't matter what comes up for them, whether it is a pattern, a behavior, a way of thinking, whatever it might be, that doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve them on the conscious level, because their prefrontal cortex is allowing them to interpret that as something that's not helpful. But if it's happening in their lives, their subconscious mind, if it could think of it on its own, it would be thinking, well, this is helping you, that's why I'm doing it, right? So if it's happening for a reason. So rather than going after it and fighting it, why not become friends with it, acquaintances, and get to know it, get to understand the reason as to why we might be feeling like we're self-destructive, why we might be sabotaging, why we might be doing things that on that conscious level above the surface of the water is looking like is something that we don't want in our lives anymore. If it's there, if it's happening, there is a reason for it. And I call it the illogical logic. When we understand why it's happening and why our subconscious mind is holding on to it as something that supposedly is serving us, you'll see, once you unravel it, you'll see it's perfectly logical, but not on that above the surface level, but the below the surface level.
Let's say that you acknowledge that you're in a pattern and you're in breakdown and or you're self-sabotaging. Where do you start with this befriending process with the subconscious, and how do you start to create a better relationship with your mind in that way?
I love the process of renegotiation. So we can do this in so many different ways, because if we think of how we create our beliefs and patterns, we've got the repetition factor that's so important. We've got the authority and confidence, right? Repetition, authority, and confidence. We could do this on the conscious level. It takes a lot longer. Some people believe you can't change your beliefs and patterns through the conscious work. I believe we can, because I did it myself before I learned anything about the subconscious, but it takes a lot longer. It's that repetition factor that's so important. And we also get to work with either someone that we consider that point of authority, or we get to learn how to become our own authority, right? And how to become confident. But it's challenging, because if subconscious mind is so much more powerful than our conscious mind in eliciting those responses, those behaviors and patterns, it's going to be that much more challenging for us to override that, right, with something new and do that renegotiation consciously if we don't feel like we are that authority to ourselves, or we are confident enough in order to renegotiate that. We can get there, and that's what I love teaching my clients. My ideal outcome for the guys that I work with is for them to become the optimal authority for themselves, and they go out to mentors and coaches not because they feel they're broken or they have something to fix in their life or their health, but because they know it's awesome and it's amazing to have someone in their corner to work with them and to help them see the things that they don't see, rather than just seeking a savior, if you like. But when we look at it from the perspective of working with something like hypnosis, for example, or any other modality that targets directly the subconscious mind, it's so much easier to renegotiate those patterns and consider alternative options, because you're speaking directly to the subconscious mind. So the way hypnosis works, for example, is by lowering our brain waves. So going from like the conversation me and Carl are having right now, it's very active, it's very conscious, right? We are in our beta brain waves. So when we actually lower the brain waves down to either low alpha or even theta, that's almost like a state between wakefulness and sleep. It's not sleep. Hypnosis is not sleep. It's not mind control, nothing like that. You basically, it's like think of guided meditations, right? I always talk about hypnosis, and that's what one of my mentors told me about, is looking at hypnosis as meditation with a goal. And I love that, because we can meditate to relax, we can meditate to calm down, whatever it might be, and that's a goal in itself. But when we go into a hypnosis practice, we can focus on a specific, like I said, renegotiation of whatever we know on the conscious level is not working for us, but our subconscious mind is still believing that it is the best way forward. So if someone, for example, let's use food as so easy because it's so visual and it's so relevant to every single one of us. So if someone reaches out for chocolate all the time, right, and they don't know why, they might be stressed, they might be frustrated, they might be tired, and the first thing they do is just reach out for a chocolate bar. If they keep doing that, it's not because they're stupid, it's not because they don't have any self-control, it's because on some level, their subconscious mind believes it's helpful and it's useful. And if it links up to memories from childhood, for example, pleasurable, lovely memories from enjoying your time with your grandma or your siblings or your parents or whatever, and eating chocolate, maybe at Christmas, whatever it might be, your subconscious mind connects that to a pleasurable state. So if your state is nothing but pleasurable, what do you want to do, right? You might want to reach out for that chocolate to bring yourself that comfort, but that food is never going to take you back to that Christmas table or that morning walk with someone you loved and shared a piece of chocolate with, whatever it might be. But when you understand what's going on, you can go deeper into the subconscious level and renegotiate, understand, help your subconscious mind understand that it might feel like the best option right now, but it's actually on a conscious level not working for your health. And there might be a different way, there might be a better way. And I just love doing that, because even though I might be guiding someone through it, it's actually the client, whoever I'm working with, doing that, right? People think that hypnosis is, like I said, mind control, or someone has to do it with you. You can do it yourself when you practice, and I'm just a guide. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So the most powerful and amazing thing is that it's actually you doing it. I might be working with you and guiding you through it, but it's you actually who does that renegotiation.
Can you give us an example of maybe like one time, whether working with someone or on yourself or something, where you uncovered like an unconscious belief that was like just like wild, and it's like all of a sudden like it just clicked, and then like what were the results, like either that day or even just like within the couple weeks or months following, because you made this discovery with someone? Just to show people how powerful it can be.
Of course. I always go back. There's bazillion, and that's a real number, by the way, bazillion different stories that I could share. But this specific client, this specific person is someone who I always talk about. We worked with a client a few years ago who was severely overweight and was really struggling with losing weight, right? And in the very first, and that was the most powerful thing, in the very first call that we had together, she told me about having to put compression stockings on to basically just be able to even walk, because she was quite uncomfortable at the time and couldn't walk properly. At some point in the conversation, she mentioned to me that when she was a young teenager, I think maybe 11 or 12 years old, her dad got disabled in a car accident, I think it was, and had to stay at the hospital, and she would go to the hospital and put compression stockings on her dad's legs to help him with the discomfort. So if you think very literally what happened at that point for that young girl, what her subconscious mind registered is looking after someone and caring for someone, loving someone, helping someone, supporting someone is putting compression stockings on, right? So when she's in her 40s, severely overweight, what do you think her subconscious mind is doing by having to put compression stockings on, by believing that she has to put compression stockings on? When I said to her that you actually are loving yourself, caring for yourself, looking after yourself in that moment, there was a great big pause first, wide eyes, and a jaw that dropped pretty low. But can you see when I talked about the illogical logic? When you think of someone being overweight and having to put compression stockings on because they're uncomfortable walking, you think, well, that makes no sense. Why would they ever do that to themselves, right? But when you understand where it came from that very literal, our subconscious mind is very literal. It takes everything at face value. So as that young girl, she learned putting compression stockings on someone's legs is looking after them. When she puts compression stockings on her own legs, that's looking after herself according to the subconscious mind. So that's probably one of the most powerful realizations and the illogical logic kind of unraveling that happened over the years. When you allow yourself to go, okay, if something is happening and I can't seem to be able to get rid of it no matter what I do, there will be a reason for it. And the reason will be for safety, protection, or self-care every single time. And when we're willing to go a little bit deeper, we'll figure it out. And when we figure it out, then we can go into that renegotiation process.
Such a beautiful story. And as you can tell, Marta has had a lot of experience in the trenches with people working on their mind out here somewhere. And yeah, like if you don't address, sort of the stories that are going on underlying, sort of underneath the surface, then, good luck trying to make that progress if you find yourself in a pattern, right? Because there is something that is keeping you in that pattern. It's keeping you in that pattern for a reason. The mind, the body, the brain, everything is very smart. It's a very smart mechanism, very smart organism here that we're dealing with, and it does everything for a reason. So it's really about getting to the root and figuring out what is happening there, what's happening underneath the surface. So with that being said, that's all I got for this video. Marta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And again, if you haven't seen the other video with Cliff, I will link it up right here. I'll also put their information down in the description below. They help train health and wellness coaches and teach them these modalities, teach them these practices, these ways of thinking, decision-making trees when you're dealing with complex issues. If you're in that space, or if you know someone who's in that space, tell them to go check them out, because they've done well for me, and I know they're going to do well for lots of practitioners around the world. And if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not subscribed already, consider doing it right now. We got a lot more videos coming soon. I can't wait to share them with you, okay? I'll see you in the next one. Take care.